what was going through your head during all of those public testimonies last week?
Well, what you were watching was a very well orchestrated play. This was a crime drama, a sort of a cheap dime novel being exposed by the Republicans and being executed by Adam Schiff. This is sort of an obscene gesture, a middle finger to America, an unconstitutional display of bad judgment, political corruption by the Democrats, useless testimony, uninformative testimony, and testimony which does not establish an impeachable offense under the Constitution. But it's not about that. This is about dirtying up the President of the United States for the 2020 election. I assume that they're going to have a vote of impeachment. If Nancy Pelosi is really as stupid as she looks and acts, they will have that vote. It will go to the Senate, and the President will not be removed from office. But the Democrats will have accomplished their goal, which is to dirty up the President of the United States. They couldn't beat him at the polls in 2016. They don't think they can beat him in 2020, and this is their way of helping whoever their very injured nominee will be.
You were talking about how dumb Nancy Pelosi is, Joe, and I wonder, do you think that they are succeeding in their core mission of dirtying up the president, or is this backfiring on them as we see stories, including out of places like CNN, that top Democrats, they say, are conceding that a major shift in public opinion on impeachment seems to be unlikely. So what are they doing here?
Well, I think they're trapped because their base, the wacky, lefto, nutso, neo-communist base of the Democratic Party, wants this. And she's giving it to them without a technical vote of impeachment on the floor of the House to set up the investigation. By the way, she's also doing something else. People need to remember this. She's not using the House Judiciary Committee. She's using the House Intelligence Committee. And in so doing, she is destroying 30 years of bipartisan control of those committees in the House and the Senate. And she's doing grave damage to the intelligence community, to the intelligence oversight function. But the truth is, the Democrats don't care about that. They profess to be concerned about institutions and about process, but they really don't care. They care about power. They care about one thing, controlling your life, my life, through government. And all you have to do is listen to the members of that House committee, the Democrats, and the Democratic candidates for president, and you should be very frightened for the future of this country.
Joe, playing devil's advocate, former President Barack Obama came out and offered a warning to the Democrats' primary field. He did this Friday evening about going too far to the left. And he got hit hard by the left on Twitter. The left said he hoodwinked workers into thinking he was a progressive. One hell of a sales job. Instead of Barack Obama, I got this billionaire wannabe guy. He really took a beating on social media from the far left of their party. What does this say about where the party has gone, and has everyone lost total control?
Barack Obama, the great man, is a cynical former president. This is hilarious when you think of, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your health care plan. A man who spewed forth lies in such grand amounts, being concerned about the party going too far left as he set up the collapse of the American health care system by purposely putting something out there, Obamacare, which was designed to fail so that they could then turn to Medicare for all, single-payer system, which is where the Democrats are headed. I have no idea what Barack Obama is doing. Of course he wants Deval Patrick to run, his buddy in arms from Massachusetts. This is fascinating. I mean, I just think it's wonderful that the former president from the shadows is making all these statements. God bless him. I hope he keeps it up. It's good for us.
Joe diGenova, did you happen to hear Bill Barr's speech to the Federalist Society last week?
I did. I was not there, but I listened to it and I read it.
Okay, so for the audience, I'll just say the top lines here were he was talking about how much the judiciary and the legislative branches have really eroded, especially in the Trump era, on the power of the executive and have assumed powers unto themselves that they truly have no business even dabbling in. What did you make of Bill Barr's speech and his call to remember what the founders meant for our country?
Well, it was a brilliant speech. It was beautifully written and delivered with heart and spirit. And, of course, he was immediately attacked by Democrats in the House who demanded that he be impeached for delivering a speech about presidential power. Now, if you can just put that in, just lock that in for a minute. There's a very liberal Democrat from New Jersey named Pascal who demanded that that Bill Barr be impeached because he supports a theory of the executive branch under Article 2 called the unitary executive. Now, for all of our listeners out there, if you've never read Article 2, go grab your Constitution and read the first sentence of Article 2, which is as follows. The executive power of the United States shall be vested in a president of the United States of America, quote, unquote. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the core of the unitary theory of the executive, meaning there is one person who runs the executive. And that person is the President of the United States. For saying what is in the Constitution, the Democrats want to impeach Bill Barr. They are crazy.
You know, Joe, we've got more testimonies coming up this week. The Democrats are going to continue to do this. They're, playing the game and only releasing certain information when it comes to transcripts, ahead of time in their summaries. They're going to continue to do this. How long does this play out for? And you think that they're going to go to an impeachment vote. Does it really dirty the president, though, when Republicans finally get their say?
Well, I have no confidence in how the Republicans in the Senate will conduct their business. They are a scared lot. They don't defend the president very well. The members in the House are doing a very good job under the worst of circumstances. The problem that the Democrats have is that everyone knows this is a sham, that it is not truly. You cannot have the types of procedures that they have in place where the president's witnesses are not allowed to appear. He's not allowed to have the witnesses that he wants. The witnesses who do appear from the administration are not allowed to have lawyers that the government sends with them from the Department of State or other agencies. They're not allowed to ask questions. For example, one of the more interesting things is the pattern of questions that has been shut down, which tries to get at Lieutenant Colonel Vindman and who he communicated with and whether or not he was leaking illegally, criminally, information to newspapers and others. So the answer is this will end when it ends. The Democrats are bound and determined to dirty up the president as much as possible. And when it gets to the Senate, obviously there's no way the president is going to be removed from office. The question will be, how do the Republicans defend the president?
Right.
How do they handle themselves?
All right, Joe, we need to take a quick break, and there are people who are trying to dirty you up, too. I want to talk about that with you as well in just a moment. Well, Joe, there is an effort to destroy you. We talk about, the president all the time, but let's focus on you for a moment, because last week, Wednesday, you went on the Fox Business Network. You were on Lou Dobbs Tonight discussing impeachment and referred to the influence wielded by George Soros and his alleged influence within the State Department. Now, that led to calls of, quote, anti-Semitism directed at you, including from some Jewish organizations who wanted to attack you for that, and calls for Fox to ban you completely from appearing on air. I should point out, George Soros is the 7th biggest political donor in the entire country, so there's no question he attempts to wield influences for his own cause. But anti-Semitism? I mean, what do you make about the reaction to your comments?
My criticism of George Soros had nothing to do with him being a Jew. It had to do with his outsized influence over American policy, both domestic, foreign, and in this country and overseas. George Soros is a Hungarian-American oligarch in this country. He's allowed to do whatever he wants and have his organization say and do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. But if you criticize him, you are an anti-Semite. This is so antithetical to the United States. It's unbelievable. Both Eric Wemple of the Washington Post, who accused me of an anti-Semitic rant for saying that I was concerned about Soros' work at the State Department and with FBI agents overseas. And Nicholas Kristof yesterday in the New York Times, who restated that phrase, anti-Semitic rant, are two people who apparently you're not allowed to be an Italian, you're not allowed to be a Catholic, and criticize George Soros. So how many Catholics are on the list that you're not allowed to criticize? How many Italians are on the list that you're not allowed to criticize by the New York Times? George Soros funds something called the Open Society Foundation. Guess what? George Soros is not interested in an open society. He's interested in a closed society, one that he supports, one that he has political influence in. He wants to shut up people. You're not allowed to criticize him. You're not allowed to criticize his organization. You're not allowed to say anything about him that's truthful and accurate because he wants to control people. He wants to say you're not allowed to talk about him. So let me do this. I challenge the head of the Soros Open Society Foundation. I challenge the head of the Anti-Defamation League of Brene Brown, who criticized me, to a public debate at the place and time of my choosing in Washington, D.C. I reiterate, I challenge them to a public debate about George Soros, about the Hungarian-American oligarch, about the seventh highest contributor, political campaign contributor in America, to a debate about his role in American society and overseas. I challenge them. I challenge Kristof. I challenge Wemple. I challenge Soros Open Society, and I challenge the head of the ADL. I'll take all four of them on in a single forum for as long as they can take it.
Joe, because all of those people condemned Ilhan Omar for her comments, right?
Yes, you will notice that missing from their criticism is any criticism of the squad in Congress. This criticism of me, of a quote-unquote anti-Semitic rant, is a destruction of free speech. George Soros doesn't believe in free speech. His organizations that he supports don't believe in free speech. They believe in shutting up people. They believe in no debate. They believe in no public debate. The New York Times, by the way, which has a history of ignoring the Holocaust during World War II, of sending a communist to cover Moscow, Walter Duranty, during the pogroms in Russia, of doing everything it could to avoid reporting on the Holocaust, of being anti-Christian, of being anti-Italian. The New York Times, of all people, to publish Nick Kristof criticizing me. Again, I challenge Kristof, Wemple, the Open Society Forum, and the ADL to a public debate at a place and time of my choosing. I will guarantee you they will not accept.
I mean, one of the bizarre features of this entire saga is that George Soros is like a super well-known quantity in terms of buying political influence. He just had a lot of success in this last election cycle buying up various attorneys' races around the country because he wants to see the law not applied in those districts and make sure that those attorneys don't actually enforce the law, right?
So he wants to change American society. He doesn't want it to be an open society. He wants it to be a closed society, a society that he runs, that he has influence over.
Sure.
That's fine. He has every right in the world to do that. And he's doing it, by the way, brazenly, going after local DAs to create people who want to destroy local police, who want to destroy law enforcement, who want to change the nature of communities. George Soros has every right in the world to say and do what he's doing. And I have every right in the world to criticize him, except you're not allowed to criticize George Soros. You're not allowed to tell the truth about a Hungarian-American oligarch. And make no mistake about it, he is an oligarch in the classic Eastern European Russian sense. He is an oligarch. Vast power, vast influence, perfectly fine. He's entitled to have it. He made his money by being a currency manipulator and a currency trader, disrupting world economies for fun and profit, and he's allowed to do that. But he also thinks he's not allowed to be criticized. That's not the way this country runs.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're criticizing a publicly known quantity, and actually, by the same token, you kind of could think of your critics as anti-Catholic and anti-Italian, couldn't you, if you were going to use it that way? Thank you very much, Joe diGenova. Always good to talk to you, sir.
Thanks, Joe.